is the Carver Conservation meeting, Carver Conservation Commission meeting for 7 PM at January 15th, 2014. And our first order of business will be approving some minutes, reading and approving. And so we have those minutes in our packets.
You should, yes, sir. Should be right under your agenda. I know. We'll be done, no worries.
Okay. What are we doing? Anybody have any additions or corrections that they wish to make?
Minutes.
In that case, could we have a motion to approve the minutes as written?
Make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
And second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded to approve the minutes for December 4th, 2013 as written. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously.
Abstain.
Yep, that's
Oh,
true.
Yes, okay. So it's passed 4-1.
401.
Next item. Budget request. Okay.
We got bills too. Mr. Chair, if I may, the two versions you have of the budget, excuse me, are the same, the numbers are the same, they're just different presentations. Just thought you'd like to see the other presentation. And if you'd like me to go through it quickly, I can.
I only have one version.
Well, you should have a version with pictures as
Pictures
well.
on it,
Yeah.
one without pictures.
And one without.
Okay, oh, I
Okay,
see.
where's the-
That's, I didn't
where are the
recognize that
numbers?
as an official, okay, good. The one with pictures on is definitely to my liking.
That's right. But that's not page 1 of 3, it should be 1 of 3. That's okay, don't worry about it. So, you're gonna have to look at the one with pictures because the copier only gave us the last 3 pages of the other one. They both have the same numbers.
Mine says 1 through 9.
Okay, if yours says 1 through 9, then that's true.
I have 9.
Very good.
I have one
That's
through,
what you should
I
have.
have 1 through 3.
I have 1 through 3. So for those of you who only got page 1 through 3, it's the last 3 pages, you're gonna need to look at your copy with pictures.
Phenomenal job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. In your leisure, you can read and digest the quotes as well.
I don't
So-
think so.
You don't need to? I didn't think you would, Dan. But they were so well chosen, I thought.
Throw a brick at me next time, Brad.
So on page 2, which is page 1 of the non-picture budget, is the departmental summary. The comparison between last year is that the salary line item that comprises both mine and my assistant's salary is, as you can see, less of an increase than last year's. Last year, my position was in the 3rd year of its, how shall I put it? There was a, there were 5 positions in the non-union department heads who had looked like they got a significant bump up because of where they originally were before the wage and classification plan was redone a couple of years back. And the people in those 5 positions, myself included, agreed to let that increase last over 3 years instead of it being all at once in 1 year. So last year was the 3rd year of that
Jump, okay.
Yeah, and so that's why there was such a big jump from FY '13 to FY '14, and much less of one this year. All of these, the expenses, the operating budget, which is the expenses, will be broken down a few pages later. There is an increase in that because we have, well, I'll get to that when I'll go through that particular part of it. So on page 3, or if you have just the numbered version, it's wages by line item. And that, of course, breaks down my salary and the clerical salaries. Still on page 3, if you have the picture version, but I believe it's page 4 if you have the numbered version, is wages by individual. And again, that breaks it out. We were instructed, as we are every year, not to put in the cost of living increase, because that's something that the town meeting votes on the budgets too, but we haven't asked for a cost of living increase in a while, and so that's either not a bylaw, but a warrant article, and we don't know whether it's going to be a warrant article, but if it is, that's up to town meeting,
So that's why it's
obviously.
left blank, okay?
The split factor is something that the town accountant puts in every year, and I think it's to account for leap years. Longevity, the number beside my position for longevity, apparently I put in a lower number than it's supposed to be. The town accountant spoke with the wage and benefits woman who works in the treasurer's office, and so it's going to be, I think it's $1,250 rather than the straight 1,000. I didn't know what it was. The next page is the operating expenses. As you can see, I've written on the photograph sheet, pictures version of this, that we're anticipating 2 new expenses next year. What happened was the license that we had for our ArcGIS, the mapping software that we have, had been based in a different office in Town Hall and had been allowed to expire. And so in order to renew that license, if I were to go with that departmental bundling of licenses, it would have cost $1,600 and would have lasted through the end of this month, which doesn't make any sense at all. So we're going for our own license this time, just our department, and it's going to be $1,200. It'll take us through the whole year, and then each year after that, it'll be $400 to renew the license. So there's that expense. And then we don't know for sure what dues and memberships will be this coming year, but I increased it by the same amount as it increased from the previous year, just in case. It's possible, and we only discovered this after I had printed this off for you guys, we make a lot of color copies in our office, and that was one of the items on the bills payable this time. We made approximately 39,000 and change color copies of things. Some of those are maps for the public. Some of those are copies of various plans that I do with other departments in town. Some of them are, some of them are land protection. They are maps of our conservation properties. Some of them show people where the flood zones are on their property. They come in and ask because their insurance companies want to know. So there's all kinds of reasons. So what I did was I split the cost of those, which was around a little over $400 total for those copies, between the 3 different funds that we could, just to try to be honest about it. Next year, we may try doing an actual count. I don't know if that's always possible, but at least this way, I think it's fairly evenly distributed. So we may have to add in more money for that particular item. That would be under our office supplies. But again, we can split it with these other 2 funds, the Conservation Trust Fund and the Wetlands Protection Fund. The next page, page 5, new positions. Obviously, there are none proposed. Next page, it's capital outlay. We don't have any capital requests this year.
Sure you don't wanna spend $120,000, get us a nice,
Get us a what?
Terex machine with a milling head on front so we can go around mowing everything down?
How much is that?
$120,000.
I don't think so,
Is that all?
Dan.
Oh,
Not this year.
We'll go for Grant.
Hey, we have the billy goat, you know, somebody wants to use it. The next page is revenues. And again, as I think you all know, we're not a department that brings in huge revenues in terms of permitting fees. Although, they are up this year from the year before, we expect them to be up next year as well. We could be considered a cost center in that respect, except for the fact that we get an awful lot of grants as well. And then the final 2 pages of the picture version are basically the last 3 pages, or I think it's the last 3 pages of your
Okay.
of your other version, just illustrated, explaining the various things, the different things that I've been working on as your agent with other departments. We've been working with the DPW on the new Route 44 upgrade project. Scouts, obviously, we had a lot of different things going on with the Girl Scouts this year. One of the other things that I spent a considerable amount of time on was helping the emergency management director update his pre-disaster mitigation plan, because there are a lot of sections that deal with things that would concern our jurisdiction. And that's pretty much it. Anyone has any questions?
Make a motion to approve the budget.
Second it.
it's been moved and seconded to approve the budget request as presented by the agent. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously.
And does that include if, I'm gonna talk to the town accountant, if she suggests we put in that extra amount for the copies,
Mhm.
I mean, if we don't use that much, I imagine we just never, I think we all realized we share that big copier in the inspection department, and I don't think anyone realized before that you can track who makes which copies. So that's how we found out. I make most of them, so we may be increasing that operating by roughly $400.
Okay. I don't think we need to actually rearrange the motion for approval on that. So, but I think this is a very nice presentation.
Thank you.
It puts flesh on the bones. So,
I got the idea from the fire chief, who also does a presentation like that for his budget.
our thanks to him for the idea. Okay, so, this next is, we have bills, $832.34. Okay, office supplies, funds protection. Okay, so we need a motion to pay the bills in the amount of $832.34.
So move.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded to pay the bills of $832.34. Any discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passed unanimously.
Mr. Chair, the next item, I'm not gonna spend a lot
Next
of.
item, I think, should be the new hearing, which is already
I
5 minutes
know.
late.
That's true. That's up to you guys.
We could do that. We could jump to the hearing. So Kevin, if you'd like to come up.
Good evening.
Good
Jim,
evening.
You
My
have to
name
read,
is Kevin Forg.
Kevin, hold on. Jim, you have to read the public hearing notice.
Oh, yes, which is here on one of these pages.
Right
There it is. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the Mass Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw. The public hearing will be held at 7:15 PM on Wednesday, December 4th, 2013.
No, Forest Street. That's
Forest
it up
Street,
there. Here.
okay, well,
Have an
let's see.
extra, take this one.
It's right on your
It is
agenda.
there.
That was on top.
That's my
It's right
agenda.
here, you can take that one. It was right on top.
Oh. Oh, it was printed right on the
That's
agenda,
right
I'm
there.
sorry. Didn't tell me where to look. I saw a legal notice, I read that. Okay. Notice hereby given in accordance with the Mass Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw, that a public hearing will be held at 7:15 PM on January 15th, 2014, in Meeting Room 1 of the Carver Town Hall to hear the request for applicability and determination of applicability for Johnson Brothers LLC to determine A, whether the work depicted on plans referenced is subject to the Wetlands Protection Act, B, whether the boundaries of resource areas depicted on plans and/or maps referenced below are accurately delineated, and D, whether the area and/or work depicted on plans referenced is subject to the jurisdiction of any municipal wetlands ordinance or bylaw of the town of Carver. The property is located at 82 Forest Street, Carver, Massachusetts, map 50, lot 6-0. All interested parties are invited to attend. Who are the Johnson brothers?
I only know one, Van Johnson is
Van,
the one
okay.
that I know.
Okay, so that's,
I believe that's Charlie.
he's Charlie's son,
Charlie's son,
and Dickie is his uncle, so maybe, okay.
yeah. I don't know the
Who's
other
the-
brother.
Okay. So maybe,
What we have before the commission is an RDA asking for the commission to recognize this, the site shown as previous bog edge as being an upland. Toward that end, we hired Brad Holmes of Environmental Consulting and Restoration LLC. And what we had directed him to do was to look at the area shown as previous bog edge and give us a report on whether or not he considered that area to be a wetland. And what he would be looking at when he determines that are three basic elements. One would be vegetation. Second one would be the type of soil is there. And thirdly, whether there is any hydrology associated with the area. In other words, a water table that's very close to the existing surface. To give a little bit of background, this was owned by a gentleman by the name of Michael Cohen at one time. And his idea was to remove the gravel and as an end result, put a bog in. Unfortunately, he did not excavate the site low enough to get it close to the water table. So he has been working with Van Johnson. Back then he worked with Van Johnson. They actually put vine on that bog, and some of the older photos in the early 2000s will, if you looked at it, it would look like a bog because there were vines there. Because of the fact that it's a very sandy soil, and it was left or built too high above the water table, they were never able to grow a crop there. As you know, cranberry bogs need to be protected in the winter for, against frost, sometimes in the spring. They need to hold the water during certain times if there's going to be a prolonged period of cold. And where they were getting the water was to the south of this bog, and they were pumping it up into that bog area. So as a result of all that, the bog was abandoned, and there are saplings throughout the area. And if you look at the, I think it's the second to the last page of the report, you can see what the area looks like. And if you can bear with me, I'd like to just read a couple of sentences that are in his report. It says, currently the area of the historic Cranberry Bog consists of dry, sandy upland area with little, if any, evidence of historic cranberry operations. This area closer resembles that of a historic gravel mined area than that of a cranberry bog. The area contains dominant upland vegetation, upland soils, and lacks the presence of hydrology. The vegetation throughout this area is consistent and is nearly a monoculture of white pine saplings and little bluestem. He supports that with standard forms provided by DEP. I think anybody that looked at this area, one other thing I need to add is the area of that's shown as previous bog edge is fairly flat, obviously because they were building a bog. But it's probably a good 6 or 7 feet above the reservoir to the south of the property. So in that case, what we're asking the commission to do, which is kind of an opposite way of how this is usually done. I mean, usually we flag a wetland and then ask the commission to review that flagged area and either agree with it or disagree with it. In this case, we're saying the area that we've shown as the previous bog is not a wetland, and we're asking the commission to, in essence, concur with that statement. And I think that ECR did a good job. I think their presentation shows that it is not a wetland. They dug test holes, and as I said, those 3 items that we spoke about have to be present in order for it to be a wetland. And I don't know if anybody's been on the property or ever seen it, but you can tell immediately that it is not an upland. I mean, it is not a wetland.
Kevin, do you know if an earth removal application was ever made?
Yes. Yep.
So that's going to have to be somehow satisfied, because that's a binding contract that he's taking out this earth and gravel in order to build a bog. And the fact that he's failed to build the bog doesn't invalidate the contract for the town.
But he did build the bog.
Well, he built the bog.
He just built it wrong.
Yeah. But now he wants to return it from a wetland status, I guess.
It's not the same person.
Yeah.
The person that removed the gravel was Michael Cohen.
Yeah.
A permit runs with the land, though. I think that's what Jim
Yeah.
said.
The permit does travel with the land.
All right.
But the big question also is whether the status of it now, as far as the town's concerned, is that it's a wetland, even though your ecologist is saying that it doesn't appear to be.
I disagree on that assumption. Whatever earth removal said it was supposed to be is immaterial to us. If we determine that it's an upland area and never became a bog, that's fine. It's up to earth removal, if they think it should have been a bog, for them to deal with that. Shouldn't make matter in our decision at all.
Well, I think it has to do also with the status of it, because if it was labeled as a wetland and went under protection of 61A, I think that throws some kinks in the machinery a little here. So I'm not really sure.
That
You have to apply for the bog to be recognized under 61A, and I don't know whether or not he ever did that.
We probably have to look into the assessor's records.
And that's still immaterial under conservation.
It may be immaterial under conservation, but it may be material as to whether we can take any action until that's clarified.
I disagree.
In other words, even if it does turn out to be dry land based on this.
I disagree.
Okay, thank you. I'll note your disagreement. So, I don't know. That's a real question to me. But we want to, you want to look into possibly,
We'll need to do a walk.
a walk, yeah. And maybe, I'll talk to, Elaine, see if we can look into the records of earth removal and see whether there's anything on it.
And to provide full disclosure, there are no plans for this property right now. However, the configuration of the property would allow there is already a house lot for the house and the garage. That was done through an A&R process. However, there was a 50-foot strip along that northerly property line that was left open. And it would allow someone, if they chose to go through an A&R process for a back lot. And the other part of that division of land would be that tail that's at the south end of the property. That's obviously not a buildable lot, but it would be joined with the adjoining land of Van Johnson or Johnson Brothers LLC.
I see, okay.
So,
And for
So it
those
would
who,
be detached from this and be attached to Johnson's property.
yes,
for those,
I guess they own the pond?
right. And toward that end, if everything goes according to plan and somebody buys that, first of all, the commission agrees that it's an upland, and somebody buys this back lot. At that time, if they're anywhere near the back portion of that bog, or the southerly end, and they're within 100 feet of the wetland boundary that's on the Johnson property, then obviously we would be back to the commission to talk to them about whatever is being proposed. My thought would be somebody would just propose a house, and it would, I don't know where it would be, but I like to be completely upfront, so, you know, not just the commission, but other boards know that there are potential plans for the property.
And just for those of you who don't know, an A&R plan is an approval not required by the planning board. And it means they can split it into another house lot, basically,
So
in this case.
In the case of a back lot, if it needs at least 40 feet of road frontage, so you're given a break there as a landowner, but the property area has to be at least 3 acres.
Mhm.
So there's the trade-off, so to speak.
And in continuous ownership by the same person.
Yes.
How much is this area minus that tail would be?
It is, the total back parcel is 5.16 acres.
Okay. That includes the tail though, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know the exact name of the fellow who used to own it? Michael
Michael Cohen. I think it's Coan.
C-O-A-N, okay.
And then he sold that to Van Johnson.
Okay. He's the fellow who would have applied for the earth removal to
Yes.
build the barn.
And the house lot was divided out of the property back in 2003. So there is actually a lot, lot lines around the house.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to see the plan.
How long's the Johnsons own this?
I know I have the deed, if you can bear with me. They bought it from Cohen quite a while ago, I know that. That's all RDA stuff, so it should be in here.
We have it here, Kevin.
You have the deed?
Yeah, Van Johnson bought it in 1995.
So basically, earth removal had close to 20 years to make this guy make it into a cranberry bog, and he didn't. I think it's a little late on them.
What's that?
Actually, the permit would have lapsed after 3 years. But
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what the status is of the land, whether partially excavated like this and attempted to build a bog,
Mm-hmm.
so.
When do you want your continued hearing to be?
Well, I would say after the commission has an opportunity to view the property.
So it would be either February 5th or the 19th.
You planning on digging some more holes?
It's up to the board.
I think given the changeable weather at this time of year, we probably ought to figure the 19th. We definitely ought to be able to get to it by then, but also give us time to check out the other things.
Oh, they said that, just would say that, the weather's too.
Oh, yeah.
So we gotta wait.
6 acres.
So, it doesn't look like there's any comments from the public.
Overwhelming.
Is there a time, or would you're gonna just
We'll,
you figure that out? and
yeah,
give
we'll
me-
definitely let you
okay.
know, yep. And so you'll want a motion to continue
Right.
that.
We will need a motion to continue the hearing since we opened it. So, would somebody like to make that?
We make a motion to continue the hearing for 82 Forest Street to the 19th, 18th of February? 19th.
219, yeah. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Dan.
Been moved and seconded to continue the hearing for 82 Forest Street to February 19th. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Pass unanimous.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Ready to go home now.
Almost.
Oh, God.
Where's the bills?
Oh, I don't have the bills.
Huh?
Where's the bills?
It's still a hearing.
What's this, our
Bills,
Christmas order?
pass the bills back down.
Good night.
Here they are.
I haven't got them, I haven't
Did
signed
they-
them.
Everybody sign?
No, we,
Did we?
Russ,
Okay.
you
Russ
and
hasn't
Julie want to
signed,
sign them?
and I haven't.
Motion to
No, we still got two more items,
We do?
two FYIs,
Oh, yeah.
and the bills to be signed.
Hmm.
We did the, signed it.
And we
Okay.
got that, everybody take a note of that letter that is in the packet, I guess, to Mr. Melville. Right, I think that's not on the FYIs.
It's a technical review committee, a comment letter that I gave to the planning board for our technical review committee meeting. It's the site on Makepeace's site on Federal Road that, where you all approved the line. Sounds like a lot of stuff in the letter. I mean, it is, but it's fairly standard, actually. So I always ask those questions, make those kinds of comments. So there's nothing unusual about this particular one.
And
God, I got a lot of paper here.
just curious, what is considered zero Federal Road?
Well, that's why I put the map in here too, so you could see it. It's a piece of property right below the landfill, CMW landfill. And it was originally, I don't know what they called it, but as you can see by the little blue line that I outlined it, where I outlined it, it had been submitted as a subdivision, preliminary subdivision way back in, I think it was 1998. So you can see the little
All right.
cul-de-sac there. But it was never built as such, so,
Gonna be another solar field for them?
yeah, that's
You
there.
seen the one on, Charles Furnace Road?
I haven't, I've heard about it though, yeah.
Look on Google Earth, you can see it.
Oh, really? Really? Wow, okay.
It's a big one.
Well, it's that way enough off the road, and
Yeah.
unless you're driving just right and then look down the power lines,
Mm,
catch it for a couple seconds,
and that's
where
it.
it's just a button of power lines, but other than that, you'd never know it's there.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, yeah. Yeah, this one's pretty secluded too.
I don't think I have a copy of that, but it's,
It should be, attached to the letter.
yeah, with Jack Hunter, I didn't get that either.
Let me give you mine, cause I can always print
Get
it.
extras here.
Yeah, mine, I'm just gonna throw it out.
Here you go.
But Dan, thanks to me. Thank you.
Pass that to John. Those two, in case you can't find it. No, I think you found it.
What's the condo?
I'm gonna cite you like that.
Hey, Jim,
Continue it
it's right there.
till the
Yeah,
19th, and
okay,
we'll have to
well,
figure out
actually,
the date.
Dan gave me his.
Okay.
Okay, good enough. And the compact, I did get that. All right, Yeah, of course, we walked that, so we pretty much know what's going on with that situation there.
You go to it, you should see the compact, you should. Interesting one is I lost it too. Think about the New England Forestry Foundation being sued.
Oh, really?
Oh, this doesn't have the agenda on it, my fault. They're gonna give a talk about it. They got sued by the town. Town said you don't rate the tax break no more.
Which town?
I forget now. 'Cause you haven't done nothing with the land. So I guess they sued, and from what I hear, they won. So now the New England Forestry Foundation has to pay full taxes on it.
What had the land, what was the use of the land before?
It was conservation land, forestry land.
What were they supposed to have done with it?
Yeah, that, I
I
mean,
mean, if it's
conservation land normally means nothing is gonna be done with it unless there's some,
Yes, conservation land, just to conserve it.
we
That's
have,
me.
yeah, wasn't,
You're supposed to know
I
these
guess 'cause they
things.
didn't put a trail in or something, I don't know.
Oh,
I haven't read the full thing yet, but
Huh.
from what I understand, the town won their lawsuit. And now a land trust actually has to pay real taxes.
Oh,
But at the compact, they're giving a talk about it.
oh, okay.
So it might be something, because we do have one piece of land trust land in town.
Yeah.
we have that, trail on the Cole property that we never got finished through the handicap trail.
That doesn't matter.
Oh, we're always doing,
Town-owned land.
Okay, that's okay.
so the
Town
piece of
doesn't pay the town taxes.
land trust, that would be the one that the Wildlands Trust? Okay. Oh, okay. Could be interesting, yeah, so,
So it's something new, and it could have wide-reaching implications
Hmm.
throughout the state.
I see what you're saying, yeah, good point.
Probably could Google and find out about the case, I guess.
Oh, yeah, it must be out there. When was it heard? What court? What county? Is it down the Cape, Barnstable?
Barnstable County, yeah,
Yeah.
No, this happened in, what's the county area?
Oh, Worcester, Worcester,
Maybe even
further,
a little east.
and it was a town.
But it was New England Forestry Foundation land, so I guess if you search that in town law, in lawsuit, you probably can find it easy.
Not that many.
They own some land down in Wareham, a whole bunch of it. I know when I was logging for, well, we're ranting on about nothing, so I wanna say, I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
there's no debate.
Get a second?
Is there any reason not to adjourn though?
And
Seem to have finished all the business?
all in favor?
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Pass unanimously.